Okay, good to see everyone. We find ourselves on Mem Vav Amud Aleph, 46a. And we are about a quarter way down. We're at the words Itmar Abaye Amar. So again, roughly a quarter way down. Hopefully you'll be able to find it in the Gemara that you're using. So just a little bit of background from last time. The conversation in the Gemara basically concluded there was machlokis about whether you recite a new bracha on the sukkah, on lulav, every single day, every time you take it. And we drew an analogy from sukkah to tefillin. The same way, every time, even within the same day, if there is a hefsek, for instance, one needs to use the restroom, they take off their tefillin, and then they put it back on, they make a new bracha. So similarly, one will make a bracha upon sukkah multiple times. If one is done with the sukkah, they go about their day and then they come back to have their next meal. They make a new leishi basukah. So that's where we basically left off the discussion. And then this evening, we'll be talking about a little bit more about the tefillin analogy. Then we'll talk a little bit about Hanukkah. And then we'll come back to the idea of saying Shechiyanu and Birchos HaMitzvos. And that's basically those are the topics that we're going to be covering this evening. So again, just for those joining us, Memvav Amid Aleph 46a, a quarter way down. All right, here we go. Itmar, Abai Amar. Oh, sorry, no, one second. Da-da-da-dum. Sorry, not a quarter way down. I think we're a little further up. Where did we leave off last time, my friends? Hmm. Where did we leave off last time? Does anyone have a bookmark in the right place? I want to make sure I'm not cheating you out of anything. Let's see. Tanya, it's feeling close much Menich Mavarch Lein, Divrei Chaim, Chomrim, Ein Mavarch El Shachar Spovad. All right, anyway. Um, so we have okay, so let's just pick it up over here. We had a machlokis at the end. Let's go with Tanaihi, all right? Tanaihi, just a little further up. To Tanya Tefillin, Kol Zman Shemanichim Mavarch Lehen, Divrei Rebbe. The opinion of Rebbe is that tefillin you will make multiple brachos on every time you essentially have a hefsek and put it back on. You just make a bracha in the morning, and that is it for the entire day. Similar to like a birchas haTorah, that we make a birchas haTorah once at the beginning of the day, and right, that classic Dvar Torah that you're always thinking of Torah some way or another. So therefore, there's no hefsek. Okay, Itmar, Abai Amar Hilchasa Karabi, Rava Amar Hilchasa Karabanan. So Abai thinks the halacha is in accordance with Rebbe, that you make multiple brachos, and Rava says the halacha is in accordance with the Chachamim, that we only make one bracha on tefillin a day. So, right, and this is like a halacha that seems a little odd to us because the minhag nowadays generally is just to wear tefillin at chakras. So, but it is an important halacha because one needs to take a bathroom break and needs to put back on their tefillin. This has ramifications. Samarav, Mari Bara Debas Shmuel, Chazina Leila Rava. So basically, even Rava is going to concede, it seems. The lo avid kishmaise. It sounds like Rava did not say as he instructed, meaning we're going to see that Rava actually made more than one bracha on tefillin a day when he was mafsik. So he would first go to the restroom before davening, or in the morning, whenever he would first put on his tefillin. He put on his tefillin, and then and when he needed to go again, he would go up to the restroom, and again he would put back on his tefillin afterwards, and he make a new bracha. So it seems even Rava eventually conceded that one bracha on tefillin may not be sufficient if there is an interruption. And so we are going in accordance with, this is like finishing up the idea we saw last time. We're going in accordance with Rabbi, and this is why we make a bracha every single day on the Sukkah of Sukkot, and even perhaps multiple times to it within the day, because one bracha on Sukkah at the beginning on the first day is not sufficient. Each time is its own independent mitzvah. So that's the completion of the analogy between tefillin, that one bracha doesn't necessarily suffice, With Sukkah, also one bracha might not necessarily suffice. Every new time that you go in, that's a new sitting. Now, if one is in the middle of a meal and you just go in the house so you can bring out the next course, that's not called a hefsek. There's discussion about what's considered a proper hefsek, but essentially, if one makes a birchas hamazon, you leave the sukkah and you're done with it for a while, and then you come back, that's for sure going to be a hefsek. Vananami krebi avdina mavarchina kol sheva. So right, that's what we do. Amar Mar Zutra chazina le the Rav Papi dechol emas the manach tefillah mavarich. And indeed, we saw that every time that Rav Papi would put on his tefillin, he would make a new bracha. So this is the prevailing shita that whenever there's a hefsek, you make a new bracha, whether it be sukkah, whether it be tefillin. Interestingly, Rabban Devei Rav Ashi every time they would seemingly like kind of adjust their tefillin, they would make a new bracha. So we don't paskin that way, but that's quite a position that they had. Very good. Any questions at this point? All right, moving right along. Weiter, as they say. Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel Mitzvahs Lulav Kol Shiva. Back to our feature presentation. Let's talk about the mitzvah of the Arba Minim again. So, three opinions. Opinion number one makes a bracha on the Arba Minim all 7 days of Sukkot. Opinion number two, Rabbi Shua Levi Amar Yom Rishon Mitzvahs Lulav Mikan Ve'elach Mitzvahs Zakenim. It's only a mitzvah to make a bracha on the first day because the rest of the days are not biblical. We only make a bracha on the biblical day, which is the first day. Third opinion, Rabbi Yitzchak Amar Kol Yoma Mitzvah Sekanim. Every day is a Mitzvah Sekanim. None of it, it's all considered a rabbinical enactment, and you don't make a bracha on any of the days. You can imagine the Gemara is astounded by such an assertion that you don't make a bracha on any days, not even day one. Vafil Yom Rishon. V'kaimla Yom Rishon D'Oraisa. What do you mean? This has been a davar pashut. We've known this for a long time that the first day of Yom Tov of the lulav and esrog, that's D'Oraisa. That's a biblical in origin. So no one argues on that. So we'll play around with what he really meant to say was Ema bar miyom rishon. Yeah, of course, he didn't actually mean day one. He meant the rest of the days you don't make a bracha. But the issue is, why are we presenting him as an independent shita? Ihachi hayed Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. Well, shkach, you just copied the work. You plagiarized shita number two, Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, who says that you do make a bracha on day one. Well, what are you bringing to the table that we don't have already? So Ema v'chein amar Rabbi Yitzchak. So you have to make it a kimta. You put in the words v'chein amar Rabbi Yitzchak, meaning he was concurring with the second position that you make a bracha on day one, but not the other days. He wasn't coming to argue or introduce anything new. He was just, saying, signing his own amicus brief or something. I'm coming in support of this shita. Very good. And now, oddly enough, we get it into Hanukkah. And I know this came a little bit too late. It still feels cold enough to be Hanukkah, but we're a little past the season. But you know what? Torah is relevant all year round, regardless of when. Okay? Ba'af Rav Savar, Kol Shiva Mitzvah Sulav. And Rav also we could find, right? Basically what we're doing is that beforehand, remember we had a machlokis, do you make a bracha on Sukkah every single time? And then we said, well, maybe this fits the position of Rebbe, that you make a new bracha on the tefillin every single time. So now we're going to find another analog in Hilchos Chanukah. The idea that we don't just suffice with one bracha on the first night, but that we'll make a new bracha every single night, even though it's only rabbinical. Ba'af Rav Savar Kol Shiva Mitzvahs Lulav Damar Echia Bar Ashi Amar Rav. And here's our analogy. Rav says, Hamalik ner shel Chanukah tzarich levarich. Every night when you light the nerus of Chanukah, you have to make a new bracha. And Rabbi Yirmiyah explains, Rabbi Yirmiyah Amar, Haroa ner shel Chanukah tzarich levarich. Even just seeing the candles. That's the difference between the bracha of lahadlik ner shel Chanukah, of lighting it, and then sha'asa nisim, that second bracha, is even if I can't light the menorah, I can see the menorah and I can make the bracha of sha'as anisim, that I saw it. So my mavarich, well, now here's the thing. We all know the brachos because we've been saying it and we have a siddur. But the Gemara wants to clarify for those who didn't have, they didn't have the siddurim around, didn't have a printing press. So the Gemara is telling us, my mavarich, Amar Rav Yehuda, Yom Rishon Hamalik, sorry, Yom Rishon Hamalik mavarich shalosh, V'Arora mavarich shnaim. On day one, you make three brachos. Hamadlik, you make a Shasanisim and a Shechianu. And then someone who's only seeing, who's only observing, they can't say the bracha of Hadlakas Ner, so they just make the Shasanisim and they make the Shechianu. But then the rest of the days of Hanukkah, Mikan ve'elech, Hamadlik Mavarich Shtayim V'Arora Mavarich Achas. So the rest of the 2 days, there's the bracha on the lighting, and there's a bracha of the observing Shas Nisim. And if you're not lighting, just make one bracha Shas Nisim. Right? Umay Mavarich, Baruch Asher Kisham V'Tzos Tzivanu L'Halak Ner Shel Chanukah. And where do we get this idea? Like, who says that we can make a bracha on a rabbinical commandment? Ve'heichan tzivanu, right? How can we say the word? This is a super, if there's one thing you remember from tonight, this is a super important concept. How can we say Asher ki sham b'tzosav tzivanu, that God, that we've been commanded? What do you mean? The rabbis told us to do it, not the Torah. So this is important. We learn it from Milo Sasor. So if you take a look at the pasuk in the Torah or Hashalim, if you have it, the Torah says, Al pi Torah asher yerucha val mishpat asher yomer lecha tasa lo sasor min hadavar asher yagilucha yamin usmo. You shall not veer from the matter that they teach you to the right or to the left. So this is talking about the Kohanim, but basically, I believe, basically the notion of the clergy in general. So this is the idea. The Torah is giving a license to the rabbis to make enactments, and we are required to follow them. And that's how we can say the words vitzivanu. Yes, we are commanded by the Torah. The Torah says follow the rabbis, and the rabbi said make that bracha, so or observe Hanukkah. So essentially, just with an extra step in there, we are commanded to do it. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak Amar Shalavicha v'yagercha. He has a different pasuk for it, but same idea essentially. Interestingly, we have a parenthetical here. We'll read it. It still makes sense. My memite zman, emamite nes. The Gemara says, who's to say that it's the bracha on zman that we lose after night one of Shechianu? Maybe it's Shas and Nisim we no longer say. So the answer is Nes Kol Yoma you say. Every day of Hanukkah is a Nes. Shechianu you just do on night one. But we recognize that every night of Hanukkah was a Nes. And to that, you're right. And we have the classic question of attributed to the Beis Yosef, but he was far from the only one to ask it, of why do we celebrate night number one of Hanukkah? There was enough oil. It's not inherently a miracle. And there's a book out there that has 101 answers, I believe, to that question. So Ayin Sham. It's a fan favorite every Hanukkah. People like to circulate that. Finally, Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak Masila Behedya Amarav Kol Shiva Mitzvahs Lulav. So he says, I'll do you one better. I don't need to show that Rav supports the idea of making multiple brachos on dwelling in the sukkah. From the fact that he says you make multiple brachos on Ner Chanukah, you know what? He even says it explicitly that you don't suffice with just one bracha on the sukkah. So he's consistent. He's l'shitaso, but we don't have to infer. We have an explicit psak from him. So that makes life much easier. All right. Any questions? Okay, good. Paul, yeah, just kind of mute.
Yeah. Is there a halacha masa here on the Hanukkah issue? I mean, if you watch someone bench left, but you don't physically do it, you're
So
only supposed to say
here,
one of the
yeah,
two
so
brachas?
it's not so practical. It's like let's say, right, let's say you're staying at someone's house. And let's say you're not lighting your own menorah. So you have the option what's called being mishate from a pruta, that you give a pruta. Now there's an interesting discussion about why pruta just means like, give him a few cents, give him $1, you definitely cover it. What does that dollar accomplish? So there's two ways to understand it. One is that you are buying a share in that menorah, so you have some sort of shared ownership. The other way to understand it is that you are appointing him as your shliach, as your agent. And in halacha in general, when you appoint someone as your agent by paying them, that is a higher form of shlichus. It's a higher form. I'll give you an example. If someone cannot say Kaddish and they appoint someone else to say Kaddish on their behalf, we're not going to go down the whole rabbit hole now, but if they are going to do that, there's a recommendation to pay them. That serves two purposes. One is that they're more likely to honor their role if they're paid to do it. Well, I better make sure to show up. I'm being paid. But also, it's considered a higher form of appointing an agent. It's a little bit more like you're there when you appoint someone by giving them money and not just by saying, "Hey, can you do me a favor?" So that might be what's occurring actually when you. So this is what we did. Marissa and I we went to visit our in-law, my in-laws, her parents, for Hanukkah. We didn't bring along our own menorah, and I was mishtate bepruta. And then basically, once I'm doing that, I listened to him make the bracha of lahalik ner shel Hanukkah of Shas and Nisim. I think Shachiana, we were here, so we did it here. But basically, then Shomea Kaona. But the case of saying just Sha'asa Nisim is in theory, if like you have no way to light your own menorah and you see a menorah being lit, you could still make the Sha'asa Nisim if you see it in someone's window. So that would be in theory where it comes up. All right, good question. So
Question.
going forward,
Rabbi,
yes, Judd.
um, two questions. If one could just as easily wait 30 minutes, assuming it's not Shabbos, but you light the candles, and then light the menorah yourself later after the candles burned out. Is that proper or not?
Are you saying is if you got to choose between joining with someone during the proper time versus the less ideal time?
Yeah.
This gets into an interesting question of how of the Zman. You know, there's basically a major debate about is the 30 minutes from, the time that you know there's like so many opinions basically. Do you do from Shkia? Do you from 12 minutes after Shkia or 18 minutes after Shkia, or do you do near Tzeis HaKochavim? But the thing is nowadays, if you live in a more populated area, arguably the Ashetichla Regel Min Hashuk can last much longer until people leave the marketplace. So do we understand that that changes based on context, or is it just the 30-minute rule and that's regardless of where you are? Chazal just formalized it that way. So I think it hinges upon that. But the truth is that fundamentally it's ner ishu beso. You have a menorah lit in the house. You join together with someone to light it during the proper zman. Now the funny thing is, Sfardim actually, they just have one menorah, and the head of the household lights the menorah, and everyone else joins in with them. There's a lot of like thumb flips over here. There's, if you want to like get into the lumdus, that similar to lighting candles for Shabbos, there might be an obligation on the makom that the place should have a menorah, and there's also an obligation to come upon the human being, the individual, that I should light the menorah. But I would have it's a good question. I would imagine there's merit to both sides. I'd have to look more into it, but I'd have to. I'd have to imagine if I were to research this more that you would probably find you would find reputable shitos on both sides for the reason that you're saying. Either doing it during the ideal time or being able to do it yourself. There's the idea of mitzvah bo yoser mi bishlucho, that it's ideal to perform a mitzvah yourself rather than outsourcing it to an agent. So yeah, I see what you're saying, Judd. I'd have to, I guess, closer to Hanukkah, if it comes up, let me know and I'll try to get you a bottom line. But conceptually, I think it's one of those cases where you have, on one hand, mitzvah bo yoser mi bishlucho, that's ideal to do the mitzvah yourself, which might tell you to delay it a little bit. But there's also like reason magdim in the mitzvahs that you're supposed to do the mitzvah as soon as possible. So I'm conjecturing, but I would imagine all these factors are taken into analysis, and I wouldn't be surprised if different poskim fell out on different sides. Um, the interesting thing also is nowadays, since we light indoors, the question is who's the menorah for? And arguably, the menorah is meant more for the members of the household than it is for people walking by. So as long as someone in the house is awake or want to wake them up, and they see the menorah, then you've already fulfilled the mitzvah. So that's an interesting, some makes it back really late at night, and they're, somewhere like in North Stamford, off some road somewhere, and no one's going to be walking by. If there's someone in the household, you can still light the menorah for them. All right. Let's see. Where are we in the Gemara? All great questions tonight. Tana Rabbanan, I believe. Tana Rabbanan. Ha'osis Sukkah Atzmo. So we mentioned this in the previous year at the top of the Amud. Someone who makes a sukkah for himself. Omer Baruch Shechianu. You make a Shechianu upon the building of the sukkah. Nichnas Leishiba, when you go in to actually fulfill the mitzvah of dwelling in the sukkah. Omer Baruch Asher Kitshana V'chule V'chule. On the Leishiv Basukah. Haisa Asuya Vomedes. But let's say the sukkah is already there and it's already built. Im Yachal Chadish Badavar Mevarich. If you're able to, add something new to it, expand it a little bit, then you can make a bracha of a shechianu. Vim lav, and if not, when you go in, you'll make the bracha of leishiv and you make the bracha of shechianu as well. Now, what do we actually do? That's the next part. We do both brachos upon making kiddush in the sukkah. And that's indeed what we do. We make the bracha of leishim and shechianu together with kiddush in the sukkah. That's what we do. So we don't do while we're building the sukkah. All right. Second to final section for this evening, we're going to be talking about Birchos HaMitzvah. Tonar Rabbanan, Haylefanav mitzvahs harbe. Let's say you have a lot of mitzvahs in front of you. You're in the sukkah, you have your lulav with you, you're putting your tzitzis on, you're putting your tefillin on, right? Just like you have all these different kind of mitzvahs in front of you. You're like, oh my gosh, that's a lot of brachos. So, Omer Baruch Asher Kisham B'Sosa Tzivanu Al HaMitzvos. Isn't that great? Just here's bracha. I'm not even going to bother. Al HaMitzvos. Mitzvahs are great. God commanded me to do mitzvahs. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, not so fast. Each and every, I believe, I'd have to look more into this, but I would imagine this conceptually connects to another concept called Enos and Mitzvos Chavilos. That one, we're not supposed to just, we're not supposed to just smush mitzvos together and try to check them off a list. So, Enos and Mitzvos Chavilos is the issue of having one bris and the other bris together, having two weddings at the same time. Now, the way with the bris, we kind of just, we'll say something in between and we'll separate both of them. So that way it's not enos, mitzvahs, chavilos. But the idea is that each and every mitzvah should get its own time in the limelight, and we should just be throwing them and bundling. That's what I was looking for. We should just be bundling them together, right? You always hear those commercials of bundling your house and car insurance and everything together. So we don't like bundling mitzvahs together. That's we don't do commercials for that. All right. And then he articulates the idea where he gets it from. Bar Papa. Rabbi Yehuda. Indeed, we passing like Rabbi Yehuda. That might be why you never, right? Have you ever heard of a bracha called Al HaMitzvos? Well, the reason is because we don't paskin that way. This is why we have to learn Gemara. We would never know this shita otherwise. Rabbi Zeir, Rabbi Itim, Rabbi Chanina, Bar Papa, my time with Rabbi Yehuda. Now, where does Rabbi Yehuda get it from? Tichsiv. He roots it in a pasuk in Tehillim. Now, this is a great example. Likely, he reached this conclusion logically on his own, probably along the lines of what we were just saying. But it's good as smachta. He can hang his hat on a pasuk in Tehillim. Baruch Hashem Yom Yom. Blessed be God every day. Is the implication of saying the word Yom twice that we only bless God during the daytime and not the nighttime? Ella balomer lecha b'chol yom v'yom tein lo me'ein berchosav hachanami chol davar v'davar tein lo me'ein berchosav. No, you should bless God for every single day as an individual unit. So too, for every aspect, every mitzvah that we have, we should be blessing God as individual units and not just bundling them all together. We have to count all of our blessings. Final piece for this evening. This is just another teaching from the same rabbis. It does not connect to this, at least to the I'm not aware of it connecting. The Amar Rav Zeir v'itim Rav Chanina bar Papa bo re'ei shelo midas hakadosh baruch hu midas basar v'dam. Know how God's midos, God's character traits are superior to that of flesh and blood. Midas basar v'dam. When it comes to human beings or just the physical world, clay reikon machzik, male eno machzik, right? If my water bottle is empty, I can put more water in it. If it is full, there's no more room to put water in it. Aval midas hakadosh baruch hu mole machzik reikon eno machzik. But when it comes to the traits of hakadosh baruch hu, one who is full, right, who is full of Torah, their mind is full of Torah, they're able to have the scaffolding and the framework to learn and understand even more. But one who is empty does not have that kind of foundation to be able to absorb more. Shenemar, as it says in the pasuk in Devarim Perichav Ches, v'hayem shemoa tishma. Now, what's it mean? Like, if you listen, you will listen. That's you're listening, right? So, what's im shemoa tishma? Im shemoa tishma v'im lav lo tishma. So Rashi says im shemoa tishma im horgelis l'shmoa as tishma tocha lomod lohosef. So if you get used to listening, you'll be able to listen to more things. You have a foundation for it. Davar acher, im shamoa biyashan tishma b'chadash. If you listen to the older things, you make sure to learn that which already exists. You'll be able to merit to understand newer ideas as well. Rashi says, meaning when we learn ideas, like in our Gemara here, we build certain foundations, we can more easily understand the next piece of Gemara because we understand that his idea of making a bracha on Ner Chanukah. Oh, I know of that idea that I make a bracha Ner Chanukah. This can help me understand tefillin and help me understand sukkah. That's how learning works. And then if you turn your heart away, shuv lo tishma, you will not be able to listen any longer. Rashi talks about the importance, a good lesson for me, of doing chazara, of reviewing. So if you make sure to review, you'll be able to listen and understand more, comprehend more. But if one turns their heart away and they don't bother revisiting that which they learned, then eventually it will all become forgotten and it'll be harder to listen and to retain it. And that brings us to the end of our learning for this evening. We'll pick it up, God willing, next week on Mem Vav Amud Beis. Wishing everyone a wonderful Shabbos. I shall be in the sanctuary again, so maybe I'll catch you there. Good to see you, Judd, Paul, Audrey, Marina, and Melissa. Take care, everyone.
Thank
Until
you.
next time.